First of all, I would like to say that I like very much India. Since I was a child, I like to read books about India. I have been in India and I follow very much Indian science. I think that we have many things in common, especially in agriculture, because although Brazil, you think about Brazil as large farmers and everything. Two-thirds of our farmers are small farmers, so we have many things in common. And thanks a lot for considering this importance of women. I really think that to be able to represent women in science, in agriculture, has been has gone much further than I thought. So, like India, I believe that regarding World Food Prize, India has the highest number of winners in the World Food Prize, but not women. So I'm not just a woman, I'm also a mother. I was a young mother of two daughters. And so is also that we do not have to just, we can be mothers, we can be wives, and we can be scientists. Everybody has to respect our decisions, okay? So thanks a lot. I really believe that the agriculture of the future has women's features because it's the agriculture that takes care about the soil health, think about the future. Okay, so women's properties, we care more about the planet than men. Sorry, men, but that's how I think, and I think that you men can learn from us women that we have to take care about the planet. So, very honored to be here giving this talk today about this microgreen revolution that will empower soil health, help to mitigate the emission of greenhouse gas, and will contribute to what all we want, that's food and nutrition security. So, if we think humanity has many ethical and sustainable goals and initiatives, if we think about human rights, sustainable development goals, and FAO and everything, we could live in a perfect world, but we are far from it. However, we can do our part. I like very much of Mother Teresa of Calcutta when she says that we can feel that we are doing what we are doing is just a drop in the ocean, but for sure the ocean would be less because of our missing drop. So we must be the drop for helping sustainable production and improving soil health. Because soil is where food begins, because soil is alive and critical for humanity. So, to produce food from the soil, we have that plants need nutrients. And a forest in equilibrium is completely different from producing food because in a forest in equilibrium, we have nutrient cycling. We do not have to add nutrients. And we also have to think that the demand of ancestral and modern genotypes is completely different. We did lots of breeding in the crops. And so what a maize of this size needs today is completely different from what an ancestral needs. So large-scale farming, and this considering small to big farms, in farms, they require fertilizers, mineral fertilizers. And Brazil today it's one of the biggest world producers. We are the first producers of crops such soybean, coffee, orange juice, sugar. We produce lots of chicken, beef. And agriculture is responsible for 1/3 of our gross domestic product. So to produce every year more, we also have to consume more mineral fertilizers, because we still do not know a way of producing food for the whole world without mineral fertilizers. But the mineral fertilizers, they have some problems. First, the low efficiency of use by plants. For example, here in the tropics, maximum of 50% of the nitrogen fertilizer and potassium fertilizer. Phosphorus, our soils retain the phosphorus a lot, just 15%. Fertilizers are really bad for the environment. They give water contamination, emission of greenhouse gas, nitrogen fertilizers, for example. They are the most responsible for pollution. So from all fertilizers, 1 kilogram of nitrogen, it's more than 10 kilograms of CO2. And price and importation in most countries. Think, Brazil, as I said, today is the second global world exporter of food, and we import 85% of all the mineral fertilizers that we use, paying dollars, and sometimes like in COVID, the war of Russia and Ukraine, we had problems of transportation. So do we have alternatives? Yes, we have plant growth promoting microorganisms that can partially or fully replacing chemical fertilizers with economic, environment, and social benefits. And I'm going to tell you the Brazilian experience with this plant growth promoting microorganisms in products that we have already at the market and that we are also bioprospecting. And these products in Brazil are called inoculants, in some countries also biofertilizers. The main process that we use in agriculture, these microorganisms, the first, biological nitrogen fixation. The second biological process, more important just after the photosynthesis, where some prokaryotes, mainly bacteria, are able to capture the nitrogen from the air to break this nitrogen and to transfer to the plants. Through evolution, these genes responsible for this process, they were spread to many prokaryotes. And when the plants appeared, they started to be associated, to do interactions with different degrees of interactions. So the most effective one is with the legumes, the symbiotic, that can provide 100% of the nitrogen that the plants need. There are the endophytes that are inside the plants. They can provide up to 50%, and the rhizocytic in the rhizosphere that can provide 20-25%. But if we think about the damage, mainly the environmental damage of the fertilizers, any contribution is very important. And two other microbial processes that we have been using a lot. One is the capacity of synthesizing phytohormones that will increase root growth, and with more roots, we increase the uptake of nutrients and water. And also solubilization of minerals from rocks. For example, potassium. Brazil imports 95% of the potassium that it consumes, but we have many potassium rocks here. So to use microorganisms to help to solubilize these rocks, and so we can have some potassium here. What I'm going to say is that building a successful story with microorganisms takes time. It's not just in 2-3 years. And we have a long story here in Brazil that started in the 1950s, 1960s with two microbiologists here in Brazil. They were specialized in biological nitrogen fixation. And they started this Brazilian school of thinking about microorganisms and nitrogen fixation. So because of them, then they had many students that became professionals working. So we have this huge tradition of almost 70 years working with nitrogen fixation with legumes. And because of this, we have more than 80, more than 100 elite strains for 80 legumes that include trees, green manure, subtropical and tropical grains, subtropical and temperate forages, tropical grains, tropical pastures. And so because of this, we have these elite strains that all of them tested under field conditions and contributing with hundreds and hundreds of kilograms of nitrogen. And we have in Brazil a huge market of selling, commercializing inoculants. Inoculants with Rhizobium last year, it was 106 million doses per hectare. But sometimes the problem is in the market, not in the science. So unfortunately, 99% of the market of inoculants in Brazil is for the soybean crop, although we have this 80 strain, more than 100 strains for more than 80 legumes. And I'm going to tell you about how important it is to build a successful story. As I told you, it's not something that you do in 3 years. So the most successful story that we have is with the soybean crop. What happened? The soybean crop started to expand in Brazil in 1960s. And we had these two microbiologists that I said, and they said, no, it's a crop that can take advantage from biological nitrogen fixation. At the time, the breeders just came from the Brazilian breeders. They just came from PhD in USA. They were nitrogen fertilizer, and these two microbiologists said, no, let's take advantage of the biological nitrogen fixation. So what was their approach? We did not have soybean in Brazil, so we did not have the strains in our soils. So they brought strains from US, from Australia, and started immediately to see how they were performing with the Brazilian genotypes in the Brazilian soils. And so they were able to identify some strains here that were working well. So this was in the very south part of the country. Then the soybean started to grow and went to the central part of the country, what we call the Brazilian cerrados, the Brazilian savannas, very different from the south. And then what could we do? We did not have biodiversity. So what they did, it was to take these strains from the south, to introduce in these very stressing conditions of the Brazilian cerrados, to let the strains adapted to that condition, and then to select strains adapted and very effective. And what we have today, we have 4 strains that we can use in the Brazilian commercial inoculants for the soybean crop. I have been working with them for almost 4 decades. And if you ask me, what's the limit of nitrogen fixation of these strains? And after 4 decades, I can say, I still do not know. Because like, if we consider the oldest one, this strain was able to supply all the nitrogen, that genotype, with a limit of production of about 1,000 kilograms per hectare needed. And today we have genotypes of 7,000, 8,000 kilograms per hectare, and continues to supply all the nitrogen that the plant needs. That's because a serious research was made. But also, a successful story requires long-term investment in research and robustness of data. And one example that I put here is when I came here to the Soybean Center in 1991 to start a group of nitrogen fixation with the soybean. What happened? I was returning from a postdoc in USA. I worked before with common beans, Phaseolus vulgaris, and then in the literature, it was that once you introduced one strain in the soil, you can never display or improve or whatever. This was the concept of US, Europe, Australia. But I said, look, we are in the tropics. Every place, we have to see our reality. So I started a work where every year I introduced fresh bacteria able to immediately start nitrogen fixation. In some soils that sometimes have a very high population of soybean bradyrhizobia because they have been cultivated before, they received inoculant before, so they were plenty of bacteria. And even though by adding fresh bacteria every year, I realized that it was possible to have an average increase of 8% in grain yield. 8%, it's a lot. It's the profit of the farmer. And then you may think, but why if you are plenty of bacteria in the soil? Because these bacteria are like sleeping in the soil. And it takes a time for them to recognize the molecular signals, to start the process of infection, making nodules and everything. And when you add fresh bacteria ready to start the process together with the seeds, this process is speeded. And then what we see is here, like in the root crown, we see a huge nodulation because of this bacteria that we introduce every year. So nitrogen fixation starts earlier, and then we have this increase in 8% in grain yield. And this is an investment in research. And after so long, if you take the papers from US, they still do not try that. And they come like with an idea, a paper in a very good journal in 2020, just saying that they did not apply fresh inoculant every year and said that they had an increase in grain yield of 10.5%, but by adding 870 kilograms of nitrogen. That's crazy for the environment. While we, with just 100 ml of an inoculant, had the same effect as they had putting almost 1,000 kilograms of nitrogen. And because the farmers, we talk to the farmers and the farmers apply and the farmers see the benefits, they use the adoption of inoculants in soybean in Brazil every year is also the highest in the world. 85% of the whole area cropped to soybean in Brazil applies fresh bacteria every year, bradyrhizobia, to improve nitrogen fixation. As a comparison, like in US, I was just told that it's less than 10%. I estimated 15-20%, but they said to me that no, even it's less than that. And then what happens? When the farmers use and is happening, the farm asks for other things. So the farmers that were growing soybean, they said, wow, we do not grow just soybean. We also grow maize, we grow wheat. And what do you have for them? I said, well, I have nothing, but I promise that I'm going to look for something for you. And we found, we have a huge culture collection here. We found the strains of Azospirillum brasilense, two strains very interesting because one had some contribution of biological nitrogen fixation. Of course, it's a rhizospheric. As I said to you, it's a maximum of 20-25% of contribution, but it's important. And the other one is that process that I said, it's a huge producer of phytohormones. So it was incredible how they were able to increase root growth. And in field experiments, we saw that they increased by an average of 25%, 24% grain production in maize and 19% in wheat. The first inoculants were released in the market in 2009, 2010. We were very happy that just after 10 years, we went to the literature and we found more than 100 field trials published in Brazil with this strain. We did a meta-analysis and we confirmed positive increases in grain yield of 5.4%, in other parameters, very important here, in 12% of root growth. And although a much shorter time of application than Brady-Rhizobia for the soybean, we have already good adoption. We have 2 crop seasons per year of maize in Brazil, and in the summer it has already 22.4% of adoption, and in the winter 42% adoption. This is almost 8 million hectares using these strains. And with the success mainly in the maize crop, this opened the doors for other grasses, other crops. Like we had an inoculant, we released an inoculant for the sugarcane. For the sugarcane, it's an endophyte and it's amazing, can contribute with almost 50% of the need of the sugarcane. And for the rice, also azospirillum, where we can reduce 25% of the nitrogen fertilizer. And the use of these bacteria that synthesize phytohormones and increase root growth open a new perspective of bacteria for improved nutrient use efficiency. Look, it's a completely different concept. It's a very important concept because do you remember that I said that the nutrient use efficiency of mineral fertilizers is very low? Look what the bacteria can do. Here is one experiment with maize. We put labeled nitrogen, N15, and so we saw that by applying 100 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare in the maize, in non-inoculated maize, just 34% of this nitrogen went to the plant. So more than 60% were just lost. While by inoculating with azospirillum, we had more roots that took more advantage of this fertilizer. They had more roots to do the uptake of this nitrogen fertilizer, and the nitrogen fertilizer use efficiency improved to 58%. It's a 70% increase. It's a lot. And then the farmers just ask, so, okay, can we reduce the nitrogen fertilizers that we are using in the maize? This is a very dangerous thing to say. We have to have robust data. So we did 30 field trials for 10 years all over Brazil. And then we saw that in every experiment, 100% of nitrogen in the doses of 90 kilograms per hectare of nitrogen, that's the gray columns, gave statistically exactly the same of putting 70% of the nitrogen with the Azospirillum brasilense. So then we released the technology that if the farmer uses the inoculation of maize with Azospirillum, he can reduce by 25% the application of nitrogen fertilizer. That means a good economy for the farmer. It was estimating $15.3 per hectare. And as important as this, the farmer was mitigating the emission of 236 kilograms of CO2 per hectare by reducing this nitrogen application. And then the farmer, again, it was so amazing because the farmer gives this feedback and we can proceed with the science. The farmers just commented that the use of these phytohormones producers, this azospirillum, was so good that the soybean after the maize was better and producing more. Then we thought, wow, it's two different bacteria with two different microbial process. So the rhizobium, it's an industry of nitrogen fertilizer, and the azospirillum, it's an industry of phytohormones. So we saw that they were compatible and the microbial process were different. So we combined the two strains. And we saw that by combining, we doubled the benefits. Do you remember that I said that in all the areas, the average increase, if we added every year, the braid rhizobium was of 8% in the soybean? Okay, by combining the two bacteria, increase it to 16%. Because why? Why? The azospirillum increased root growth. With more roots, we had better uptake of other nutrients, better uptake of water, and more roots to make more nodules that were fixing more nitrogen. Again, we were happy that we went to the literature. We found several experiments, field experiments performed in Brazil, confirming the positive effects of this combination of strains that we call co-inoculation of soybean. And in a really short period, it's already in 35% of the whole area cropped to soybean in Brazil. This is 16.6 million hectares, a huge area using this combination of rhizobia with azospirillum. Then other nutrients, the farmer asked about other nutrients. Brazilian soils are very poor on phosphorus, and the phosphorus is quite fixed in our soils. Do you remember that I said that just 15% of the phosphorus fertilizer is used by the plants? So, well, we found two other bacteria, but this was bioprospection of 15 years. Again, is not a thing that we can get in 2-3 years. So it's a bioprospection. We bioprospect in areas where we had very low phosphorus content from plants that had a good performance there. And we found these two strains with capacity of synthesizing phytohormones. You can see here improving root growth, and also they had capacity of solubilizing phosphates, because we have rock phosphates here in Brazil. So we saw a good performance regarding phosphorus nutrition. The first inoculant for phosphorus, a microbial inoculant for phosphorus in Brazil was released in 2019, and it's already used in maize, soybean, common bean, sugarcane in about 7 million hectares. And potassium also, but the mechanism in potassium that we have, it's a strain. We have Pseudomonas fluorescens and azospirillum that improve a lot root growth. And then by improving that mechanism that I like very much, that improve the use efficiency of the potassium fertilizer. So the first inoculant for potassium was released in 2021. Microorganisms can help agriculture in many ways, in addition to plant nutrition and improving crop yield and profit of the farmers, because we have to think further. So microorganisms can enrich the soils on nutrients. So for soybean in Brazil, the Australian group of David Harridge, They have a they have very interesting and important data. And according to them, by analyzing all legumes, about 25% of the nitrogen that the legumes fix, it stays in the roots, in the nodulate roots, enriching the soil. So 25%. We are not just providing the nitrogen that the plant needs to have good yields, but we are also enriching the soil. And indeed, in Brazil, we measure, and the soybean is so amazing because, as I said, I still do not know the limit of nitrogen fixation of these adapted Brazilian strains that we use in the soybean. They not just are able to supply genotypes that today are able to produce 7,000, 8,000 kilograms per hectare, but we also measure in the soil. They live in the soil a very high amount of nitrogen, 30 to 6 kilograms of nitrogen. So they are really a huge industry of nitrogen fertilizers. And we all know that we are facing climate changes, all these challenging things of climate change. It has been very difficult for agriculture. And we can think about the microorganisms that they can really help to mitigate these climate changes. I give one example here. Brazil is known by having 15, maybe 20% of the global diversity, but all of our countries, India is a country huge in biodiversity, it's a question of searching for solutions in the nature. So what we did, we went to the driest region here in Brazil. It's called the Caatinga biome. Then we went to a plant called Mandacaru that can survive well up to 2 years without one drop of water. So we went to the microbiome of these plants and we selected strains and we did, as I said again, it's a work of 10 years and we found a strain, incredible strain that has many microbial processes that help to mitigate water stress. They produce like a gel in the roots that decreases the water leaving the roots of the plant. They produce phytohormones and
So we'll wait for a few minutes because I think Dr. Mariangela has just got disconnected. We'll wait for her to log in back. Login பண்ணாங்களா திருப்பி?
I'm sorry, I had problems here of electricity. Okay, so I'm back here.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. You may please continue. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. So I'll restart here. So this, I don't know where I stopped here. I was here, but if I said that the selection that we did going to this most arid here in Brazil, selecting from a plant that can survive up 2 years without one drop of water, we found this bacteria that has wonderful process helping to mitigate water stress. So it produces some gels around the roots that help to mitigate the roots of losing water, also increases root growth by phytohormones, so the plant can go and look for more water in the soil. So the first commercial inoculant was released in 2021, and it's already 1 million hectares. And of course, roots. Roots are everything. So our strains that improve root growth because they produce phytohormones, they increase the tolerance to water stress. So we have many field experiments showing this here. And interesting, we just did a control experiment showing that these bacteria, by inoculating them, the plant can survive and produce as well as the control plants in an environment of 2 Celsius degree above the average. That's the prevision that we do not want that it realizes of increase in temperature in the world. And to be a research is to dream of the drops of the future. And although I'm old, I just want to dedicate most of my life from here to help to solve the most important environmental problem that we have in Brazil. Brazil, we have 160 million hectares with pastures. 60% more or less are in some stage of degradation. This comes from the past, from wrong things that they did in the past. But look, all the crops that we have in Brazil, and we are the second global world producer of food, is in half, it's in 8 million hectares. So we have the double of pastures and 60% of them in some stage of degradation. So we saw that microorganisms, strains, and technologies then can really help. First, because these degraded soils, they are without life. Okay, and it's very important to consider that a soil without life is not a soil because it not can even retain the nutrients. So we saw that by introducing microorganisms in the soils, we start to recover soil health, the life in the soils. And we saw that the microorganisms can help by using Azospirillum brasilense and Pseudomonas fluorescens. We saw that not only we were able to increase biomass production by an average of 22%, but also increase the nutrients in this biomass, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. So the cattle would not just have more food, but food of better quality. So by having more food and food of better quality, we can put more cattle in the same area and release the area for other crops. So then we can double the Brazilian production without having to cut one tree, because we just have area of recovering degraded pasture and be able to increase production without having to cut one tree. Besides that, environmental benefits like mitigation of greenhouse gas, because we are recovering without using much nitrogen fertilizer, sequestration of carbon because roots grow a lot, and also preventing pollution of water reservoirs. What's very important that I'm very proud and happy because I've chosen to work this in my life is microbial technologies. They are suitable for all farmers, systems, and farmers, from the smallest to the biggest one. And I know that maybe you have this idea of soybean, just big farmers in Brazil, but indeed 73% of the farmers that grow soybean in Brazil, they are small farmers. And they can have big benefits by using a microbial inoculants. So my state, we have many small farmers. And we did, today we are, here is the result of 5 cropping seasons. But we have here, in this 5 crop seasons that we worked with more than 3,000 farmers, they saw a benefit by using that co-inoculation of Brachyphyllum with Azospirillum of up to 350% in nodulation, but an average of 35% increase in nodulation and 8% in grain yield. That resulting in a profit of $111 per hectare. It's a huge profit for these small farmers, and very important, helping to mitigate emission of greenhouse gas. And one example that I like very much, it was a very special day for me, May 2018, the same day, the same message. My colleague that works here with me at the Embrapa Soybean Center was giving a seminar in the biggest group growing soybean in Brazil. They had almost 700,000 hectares growing soybean. And I was in a project in Africa, in to Africa project, that attended 550,000 farmers with a maximum of 1 hectare. And we were talking about the same strains, we were talking about the same technologies, the same benefits that were helping a huge group growing soybean and small farms growing soybean in Africa. So we are indeed facing a microgreen revolution because the world is finally realizing that biologicals are the only viable solution that we have to improve agriculture in a sustainable way. So, like in Brazil, here I show the numbers, it's just incredible. Here, how the doses of inoculants commercialized every year is growing, the industries of biologicals are growing, the market of biological control is growing. Why do we need science in the next decade? Because the possibilities have never been so exciting. I wish I had 30 years ahead of me to make the science. Because one thing that took me 10, 15 years to get today with the new tools that we have, like genome editing, we can have in 2, 3 years. So if we use the proper technologies, if we use them in the right way, if we use them to reach a sustainable agriculture, we can be very successful because we still have many possibilities. Like we do not know the biodiversity of our soils. There are incredible solutions there. One example that I like very much is we know the problems that we have facing antibiotic resistance, and by non-culturable soil bacteria, the researchers realize a new antibiotic that also did not cause resistance. So we have millions of solutions in microbes that we still do not know. We are learning about microbiomes of crops, so we can go to the microbiomes of our ancestral crops and to find solutions also for everything. And as I said, the genome editing, that we can very fast and easily edit genes, put new genes without being transgenic, and improve the performance of new microbial process. But I just want to remind that agriculture is very important for food and nutrition security. However, to produce food with biologicals is even more important, but it's not enough, okay? To produce food is like to solve 40% of the problem. We have problems of governmental help, economy, education, and everything. So I invite you to read this book about that we wrote here about food and nutritional security in Brazil, just showing that to solve the problem of food and nutritional security, it requires multidisciplinary science. It's not just produce food. And then going to the end, I can say that microbes are the stars of a new microgreen revolution. Brazilian agriculture has greatly benefited from microorganisms. And for you to have an idea about the impact of microorganisms in agriculture, I'm just going to show the results of one crop biological nitrogen fixation with the soybean. Considering the whole area cropped to soybean in the last crop season, the price of the nitrogen fertilizer in Brazil in the last crop season, and the need of nitrogen to produce soybean in the national average that we have here in these 47 million hectares, we would need nitrogen fertilizers that would cost for the country $27.2 billion in the last crop season. This is $860 per second. So can you imagine, for sure, Brazil today is the first global producer and exporter of soybean. So I can guarantee to you that Brazil would not produce any soybean if it was not for biological nitrogen fixation. Soybean crop in Brazil is just possible because of biological nitrogen, an effective biological nitrogen fixation, because we could never afford nitrogen fertilizer to put in the soybean, even in small doses. And as important as this economy, we have that by not using nitrogen fertilizer in the soybean crop, we avoid the emission of, just in the last crop season, of 260 million tons of CO2 equivalent. And if this story, if this application of microorganisms in agriculture was possible in Brazil, can be possible in every country, bringing benefits for the planet, higher sustainability, for the farmer, higher profit and life quality. So I hope that I convinced you, although I think that I do not need to convince you, because India uses lots of biologicals, and I hope that uses even more from here, but that we have a huge, we can have a huge contribution of biologicals to the agriculture.
Yes, thank you very much for highlighting the role of microorganisms and how they can be used to increase yield with specific examples. So we'll now open up the floor for questions if there are any here, and then here maybe immediately at MSSRF, and then we'll move online. Anybody here wants to ask something?
Yeah. Good evening, Dr. Maria. It was a very insightful presentation looking at Rhizobia single strain, how you have cut down on the nitrogen use in the soybean crops. We also have some examples like that where we have tested our Rhizobia as consortia and also amending 50% of the recommended dose of fertilizers for nearly 5
Yes.
down on chemical fertilizer use by 50%. But the challenges we faced was that when we take up these strains, because India is a very diverse agroecological zone nation with agroclimatic conditions varying. If we try to popularize single strains, it's not going to work. It's a very complex situation in India. Because we conducted multi-locational trials where we saw that the performance of these strains really varied depending on the locations it was tested. That was one challenge we were facing. And also popularizing it among farmers was another biggest challenge. And the next one of the product which are going to popularize. Because maintaining quality products is again a very big challenge when you're going to promote these microorganisms as substitutes for fertilizer. So how did you come across all these challenges in your experience?
Yes. Well, the perfect situation is to really find microorganisms that are adapted to different environments. Okay. So I'm really, as I said to you, we had the strains working with soybean in the south part of the country, where it's subtropical. And then we went to the Cerrados, they did not work. So we had to do an adaptation of these strains to the Cerrados. I also had experience, in Canada, they had a very good strain for phosphorus in Canada. And I saw the work was really nice. They brought the strain to Brazil and did not work because from Canada to the tropics did not work. Sometimes in similar situations, it can work, like these Brazilian savannas, the cerrados, they are very similar to great part of Africa. So what we did with the soybean, we took the Brazilian strains, very effective. We went to Africa and they performed very well. But at the same time, we started to select strains from Africa, and we saw then that the performance was even better. So the transference of technology from Brazil today is the leader of tropical agriculture in the world. So the transference can speed up because, as I said, sometimes take 10 years, 12 years and you have to speed up the adoption and improvement of agriculture. So we can speed up solutions from regions where you have more or less the same environment. But the best solution for sure is in each region. So India has much more diversity of climate conditions than Brazil. So you will have to work on not only one strain, okay, but the
Yeah.
strains for
That is
each
just
place.
a challenge in India.
Yeah,
It has to be more
yeah,
crop specific, region specific. We cannot just go
yeah,
with one strain saying that this will fix a lot of nitrogen.
yeah.
I have a lot of
Uh,
questions, but I think want of time must be we can connect. The one question I would like to put up is regarding the regulatory issues. You're talking about getting strains from Africa, Canada, etc. But in India, we have got very stringent regulatory issues where we cannot take one strain from one state to another state itself. We have to have some permission granted. So,
yeah,
but in
yeah.
Brazil, I think it is not so strict, isn't? Is it so?
No, we India, South Africa, Brazil, we have the same legislations regarding that. But if we do the proper paperwork of the legislation and so on, we can take strains to another country because then if they started to do commercial exploration, then there are disagreements. And now we also signed the Budapest statement. So these are things that we have to solve. Here in Brazil, we can use strains from all over the country. We don't have we have to do the registration, but there is no limit to transfer from one state to the other one. Now, for other countries, we have to do some paperwork, but it's not impossible.
Yeah,
I would like to comment one thing that you said about quality control. This is extremely important. Why? Because there are lots of very bad products in the market. And we have to have strong legislation ensuring that the products used have good quality. Why? Because, farmers are very they the word is not difficult. They are right, okay, because they live. We are there doing research. We have our jobs, but they live. If they lose money, it's a real problem. So we have to take them. If they believe in us, we have to deliver the proper message. So if we say that use microbial inoculants, you are going to have benefits. And he uses a bad inoculant, does not have any benefit on that. He will not believe in microbial inoculants anymore, and he will talk to all the neighbors. So to have good products in the market is extremely important to have the confidence of the farmer, okay? Because we do the technologies, we know that it works, but we have to be sure that the ones that produce and distribute the inoculants, they are producing properly.
Must be just one last question. What about that strain of Bacillus aryabhata, what you have shown? From where was it sourced? Bacillus aryabhata.
What?
Bacillus aryabhata, the strain, CMA, what you have shown in one of your slide. From which country was it sourced?
Oh, they were from one from USA and another one from Australia.
Okay.
And then the other ones were adapted, the strains that I said that they put in the soil, they made the strains to adapt to the soil and then to recover. But for the soybean, they were originally from US and from Australia.
Okay. Thank you.
I think there's one question online. Anbavahini is asking, is there any specific policy intervention that are most effective in improving the adoption of biological fertilizers? And is there any specific model that can be adopted?
Well, here in Brazil, we try to be strict, okay, because the person that wants to use one strain or one product has to prove what we call agronomic efficiency, has to have at least 2 years of field experiments showing the benefits, improving grain yield, or producing as much as the chemical fertilizer with reduced chemical fertilizers. Okay, you have to, as I said, when we release a technology or a strain, we have to be sure that it works very well. Otherwise, the farmers will not believe in us anymore. Okay, so to be sure that one strain works is, I believe, that's the most important criteria that you have. Another, well, because I read some papers in India, and then I just want to call the attention for something. Well, microbes are not just, we do not have just bad or good guys microbes. We do not have microbes that have just one property or another one. Like we have some rhizobia strains that are able to fix nitrogen and also synthesize phytohormones. But one thing that we have many strains that are very strong plant growth promoters. They produce lots of phytohormones, but they also carry genes of pathogenicity to humans. So that's a very important thing that we have to think about, okay? Because it's not because one bacteria promotes plant growth that can be used in agriculture. We really have to analyze if the bacteria does not have pathogenic genes to humans, because these bacteria, they have the pathogenic genes and they also promote plant growth. We have just to use safe bacteria in our agriculture.
Can you explain what you mean by adaptation? Because you said you get cultures from other countries and then you put it in soil. So
Wow.
what really
Yes,
does adaptation involve? Yeah, thank you.
Yes. These strains were used when the crop was started to expand in the south part of the country. That's subtropical soils, more fertile soils. Okay, temperatures are not very high, and we have rain all over the year. Okay, so they were very well and fixing nitrogen very well. Then we opened this new frontier in Brazil, the Brazilian savannas in the central part of the country. Totally different. Soils are very poor on fertility. They have 7 months of dry season. The temperature is very high. So these strains that were well in the south, they did not work in this part of the country. And so they were not fixing nitrogen, and soybean crop was starting to grow there. So what the researchers did, because we do not have the biodiversity of rhizobia, soybean braid rhizobia in Brazil, because it's not a plant, it's an exotic plant to Brazil. What they did, they were very creative. They took these strains from the south, they put in the soil in the Cerrado. They left these strains in the soil, suffering for 3-5 years. Then they cropped soybean in the soils. They chose the best plants growing very well, and then they re-isolated the strains from the nodules of these plants that were growing well. We are in this very different region, and then they saw that these strains that they re-isolated, and they selected one that were fixing more nitrogen. they were adapted to these conditions. And they are today the two strains most used in Brazilian inoculants. They are very tolerant to the dry season, to high temperature.
Just one more question. You said that the root mass usually increases with most of these strains, right? Whether it's most of the bacteria, because they promote root growth. So what aspect of root growth in your experience is really beneficial for you to get better yield? Do you see more number of main roots, or do you see more number of lateral roots, or
Yes.
yeah.
It's really amazing. Because we have every year more dry periods, and also, as I said, we lose lots of the mineral fertilizers that we apply. Everything, roots are very important, and so it's not just we selected strains that can produce phytohormones and improve root growth. And it's amazing, as you said, they increase, in general, many parameters of root growth, but many the thin lateral roots that are responsible for the uptake of water and nutrients, and also they continue to promote more root growth. And as you know, nodulation, each piece of root is just able to make a nodule for some few hours, okay? If in few hours that root does not have a nodule, it will never have a nodule, so needs a growing root. So also allowing to grow these lateral thin roots, we also improve nodulation. But in general, several parameters, but mainly these thin roots, lateral roots, responsible for the uptake of water and nutrients.
There's a question. Is it Professor Jayaraman? Is that? Yes. The bacterium Bacillus aryabhatae was named, so this is just some information, was named in honor of the prominent ancient Indian astronomer. Yeah, surprisingly, not a microbiologist.
Yeah,
And mathematician Aryabhatta. That is why probably Dr. Prabhavati asked you that. The species was identified as a new form of bacterium by a team of Indian scientists led by Dr. Shivaji in 2009. And the
yes,
team
and it's
apparently
amazing.
yes.
It's
Yes.
an amazing species.
Yeah.
Yes.
So thank you for pulling this out so quickly for us, Professor Jayaraman. The species has since been reclassified and is now formally known as Priestia. Okay. So thank
Yes,
you.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that is the reason she asked you whether probably the origin is somewhere else. So thank you for that. Yeah, thank you for sharing this with us. Are there any more questions from people online? You may please raise your hand. Yeah. So thank you. Yes. No, I think there are no more questions. Anybody here in the audience?
Yes, I have one question.
Yes,
So
please go
thank
ahead.
you, Professor, for your excellent presentation.
I can't hear. I can't hear. Please speak.
I am audible? No?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you for your excellent presentation. Actually, I need some suggestion, like, as you are an expert in this field, because instead of using one type of bacterium, suppose nitrogen fixing, if you use different type of bacterium who can fix nitrogen and solubilize phosphorus and other plant growth hormone activities, so if you will make a cocktail and put it in this one, how it will work? It will be advisable?
Well,
Because why I'm putting this question, plant fitness is not dependent on only nitrogen, but also phosphorus and other plant growth promoting activities. So instead of using one bacterium, one specific type of bacterium, if you use all together as a cocktail and put it plant,
yes.
how it will work?
Wow. I've seen. Well, I'm really sorry. This is the last one because I have to to go to another meeting. So what do we have? We have today many cocktails trying to arrive. What's the difficulty about cocktails is control quality. Okay, in Brazil, legislation is very strict. If you say that you have 40 strains in one inoculant, you have to prove that you have 40 strains. Indeed, we have problems of detecting sometimes inoculants that we have just 2 or 3. You know that microbes compete a lot. So I can say that I have analyzed many cocktails, and they do not carry everything that they say that they carry, just because one microorganism is dominant over the other one and can kill the other one. Okay, so I believe that we'll progress in future in control quality, in formulation, because today all the formulations that I know do not allow like 40 bacteria to survive. And also at the industries, I saw many industries that by the end said, oh, look, our limit is like 3 bacteria because it's difficult to produce inoculants with more than 3. Okay.
Thank you, Professor. And I have another just, okay.
Yes, please, I have to leave now.
So thank you very much, Dr. Mariangela, for interacting and also for your presentation and highlighting the importance of microbes. So yes, you may please log off if you have another meeting to attend. And everybody online and the audience at MSSRF, thank you for being such wonderful participants for the year. And thank you very much once again. Yes, we log off.
I want to thank you all. As I said, I really like India. We have many things in common. I believe that we have the same view of agriculture, that we want the goals of sustainability. I believe that we also have the same principles of ethics and everything. So it has been a pleasure. I'm sorry that I have this other meeting. It was not planned. It was a urgent situation, but I'm available if you want another time to have another meeting. I'll be here available for you. Okay, thank you very much.